Let's get started. Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, wherever in the world you happen to be. It's a great day today and a rare occurrence that we have such a panel of guests today. So without further ado, before I kind of set the stage, let me just introduce the gentleman, at least from where I'm sitting to my left. First off, we've got Mudassar Malik. He is our VP of Marketing. Next up, we've got Uzair. He is our Senior Director of Product and Design. And lastly, but not least, we've got Luca, our CTO. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you so very much. I'm glad you're all here joining me today. So, as you all know, today's topic is omnichannel, but more specifically, the challenges surrounding implementation. However, before we get started at that, I kind of wanted to tell a little story about something that happened very recently. Now, I was on my way home on a Saturday afternoon without my son, which is a rare occurrence, but I was stuck in bumper to bumper traffic. And like you can yell at me later for my driving habits or whatever, but I was bored. I started flipping through my phone because I've got a few thousand emails that I haven't read. And anybody who was a kid probably knows that my kid's a typical boy. He's loud, he's messy, he's very hands-on, and those hands are usually sticky. So anything I've got from the waist down usually has these little greasy handprints all over them. So I was happy to see in the car that I had this, I have 40% off on pants from one of my favorite retailers. I'm like, amazing. So I start checking out. And I'm usually one like I want instant gratification, so I'll spring for the fast shipping, and I'm going through it, and I realize where I am, and just right off at the next exit is a mall that has that store in it. I'm like, I'm gonna pick this up in person, save myself the shipping, save myself the time. I don't have the kid. The stars are aligned. This is perfect. But unfortunately, they didn't let me, it didn't give me a pickup at store option. But I'm like, okay, that's not the end of the world, whatever, the mall's right there, I can go walk inside. So I go in the mall, I walk in, find my pants, even found a sweater I like too, that was 40% off. I go up to the counter to pay, I look at the price, and I'm like I'm not a math whiz, but I can tell when 40% it is not taken off of something. And I was like, excuse me, but I thought that these pants are 40% off. And she's just like, oh, no, that's just an online only exclusive. I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm like, okay, damn. All right, fine. It's enough savings that I'll go home, I'll order it. Everything's fine. So I get home and like the kid is napping. I'm like, oh, it's actually going to work out. So I find the pants, I put it in my cart. Then I go and I find the sweater that I was looking for. And you know what? The sweater's regular price. And I found out that was an in-store exclusive. So needless to say, that was the furthest thing from an omni-channel experience as you could imagine. So why did I tell that story? Well, that was, I fell victim to what I think was multi-channel done bad. It was siloed multi-channel communication. But multi-channel isn't necessarily all bad, but to draw that fine line difference between multi-channel and omni-channel for the conversation going forward, I'd like to go ahead and go around the room and get each of your take with it. So in no particular order, we'll start with you, Uzair. So what is the difference, in your opinion, between omni-channel and multi-channel, just to set a baseline for everyone?
Well, it's an interesting question the way you framed it. I think multi-channel is when organizations are present on different channels and they're serving customers on them, whereas omni-channel is truly a channel-less concept. It's the same experience across the board, no matter how you interact with them in the store, in the shop, in the digital space, through mobile app, through call center. You're talking to the same people or same kind of company. It doesn't feel like you're interacting on the call center on a different company versus if you go to digital, right? So I think that's sort of my take on it, but also curious to hear what Mudassar and Luca have to say.
Okay, well, looking at you, Luca, what's your fine line difference between omni-channel and multi-channel?
I look at from my angle, right? Technology. So for me, is a different way of architect and think through the way to design and distribute content at the end of the day, right? So for me, looking at that angle, the enablement of omnichannel clearly implicitly kind of like involve the fact that I build once and deploy everywhere seamlessly, while the multi-channel kind of model is mostly how many permutation of the same API of the same front-end application I can actually create, or mobile app I can create, right? So one goes from basically a distribution that is into this kind of infinite stream. Imagine this flow, and is the omni-channel. I need to think about, I need to simplify. With multi-channel, I'm actually adding more complexity because I need to consider the permutations.
Actually, so what you're saying is omnichannel is simpler because it's less limiting.
Yeah, omnichannel, the of omnia seems so overwhelming, right? Everything. But at the same time, I think it's creating this equalizer between things. We stop thinking at the, different point of views, and we try to unify this point of view into a single pair of eyes, right? And it's kind of reflecting what you were saying, right? If in your pair of eyes, you generally do not care if it's a store, online, a mobile app, a voucher, a pigeon bringing you that information, right? Or a billboard. You only care that at the end of the day, you get your 40% off, and it's clear to you, those conditions are coming clear to you, right? Yeah. But your knowledge of conditions already implies, implicitly, that there are permutation to that original offer, right? There is an if, there is a permutation of it, there is a change. And so that's where it creates this kind of friction, right? Because it kind of like disconnects you from this, bird eye view into this kind of like very, very focused view on the single channel.
Well, at the very least, I have a feeling I'm going to feel very reaffirmed in my outrage by the end of this conversation with everybody. So lastly, but not least, Pujasar, what is your take on the difference between omnichannel and multi-channel?
Yeah, I think what you just quoted as an experience, Chris, that was a perfect example of having a multi-channel experience, where essentially you have a lot of channels for the customer to engage on, but all of them are working individually and not necessarily like the physical store, or be it the social or the email or whatever the channel is being used, they are working individually. Whereas in omni-channel, it's all immersive, and customer experience is the king. The focus is customer experience here. And like Luca's point, essentially you're removing the friction between sales and marketing channels so that you can, resolve issues faster, or you could provide personalized experiences, drive more conversions or revenue. And everybody, it's actually a great brand experience for everybody, be it the employee or the organization, right? So immersive and customer experience being the key focus is really where you see the difference there.
And it's just and to your point, it really is that disconnect of that experience between the channels. It's as if it's, I know I'm at the product at the end of the day really is the same, but the experience of getting to that is just remarkably different. Like one is kind of hopeful and one is just downright infuriating.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, and this is it's just a good segue. Like, we all know there's been omni-channel experience has been around for a decade. The discussions have been on whatnot, but it's only gained hype in recent years. So having a unified, consistent brand experience across all channels, be it physical stores, mobile apps, websites, email, web chat, social, phone calls. There's so many of them, by the way. So, but it's clearly seen as a competitive advantage, right? That's what we all agree behind. The big question is that the customers are wanting it. The board wants it. Brand is demanding it. And I'm just curious to know from Jose and Luca, from your perspective, what do you see, what's holding us back?
It's an interesting question, and I often reflect on it in this is sort of my take on it, right? Organizations have evolved over time, and they built their organization structure around serving customers on different channels. What do I mean by that? For example, contact center has been there for a long time. They built a whole organization unit around contact center with specialized people who are customer experience experts. They have optimized it to the nth level over time. They have obviously are implementing machine learning and so on and so forth, and latest and greatest tools in there, also keeping a pulse on customer experience and surveys. But this whole setup is built and done for the contact center. Then similarly, there's the whole channel of retail, which has been there for centuries, which is where we are coming from. And that has its own dynamics. It has its own skill set. The salespeople or the facilitators or assistants or advisors, as we are calling them now, is the evolution of similar sort of skill sets who are very good in people dealing and are helping you make decisions, right? It's a different skill set. The tools and technologies they have built are also different. So we would have a point of sale software system there. We would have an inventory system integration there. We would have deals and discounts and coupons, like Chris was mentioning. Some certain deals are specific to that particular channel. Along came the digital channels, which, well, first we evolved into like social, which became like a channel to send word of mouth and get your brand recognized, but over time has become sort of a punching ground too, where like you have some issue, your internet is down, rather than pick up the phone, it's easy to fire a tweet away and they, hey, Rogers, my internet is down, and something like that, right? So it has its own dynamics. And then we have obviously mobile channel, so on and so forth. So what I see, Mudassir, is the whole organizations are built around channels, and they've been optimized. Their tool sets are built around that channel too. Like call center has a different tool set completely. And no offense to Luca, I'm putting it as a label of tool set. I know Luca will go into the depth of that. It's by no means diminishing the importance of it, but they have their own ways of working and also technology silo. Call center has some interactions with the customer, and that's the view they have of the customer. Retail has a different view. Digital has a completely different view. The way we have organized our organization, there's no across the board connection between the whole customer journey end to end. And that's fundamentally what, to me, the major problem that organizations are grappling with. People are working in silos, technology is in silos. How do we deal with the customer experience which traverses different channels? To me, like it's primarily we have built it the wrong way, and it translates into a lot of complexities, which I'm sure like Luca can speak towards. Just curious to see how you see it from a technology lens, Luca. I'm speaking more from customer lens, that different people who are serving the customer are across the board in different silo, do not have the full picture of the customer.
Yeah, before Luca jumps in, I just wanted to jump in and say that's a very interesting take, Jose, because you're trying to you provide a unified experience to the customer, but the unification in the organization is missing, essentially. That's what you're looking to, right? So until you're not set up yourself as an organization, you can't expect to deliver it to the end customer.
Absolutely.
Luca, yes.
So, you know, I'm very opinionated and provocative generally. So I'm saying that
no idea.
we are victims and of Conway's law, right? The organizational complexity that's been built on top of legacy and, you know, an evolution process, right? That was driven more by, you know, accelerating even those silos. Now it's clashing into the need of unification, right? And so when you have those silos, it becomes very, very hard to, you know, tear them apart and create this beautifully unified place, because people inevitably they are adapting to those silos. They're thinking like those silos, and ergo the architecture becomes a reflection of this complexity, right? So Conway's, I think, you know, was completely right. You know, his idea goes back to 1967. So I think it's a proof that history was right in this case. And but we now are facing a new need, and you actually spoke about this need, the need of taking down these kind of barriers, because users, they are now our generally consumers, they're facing the clash of efficiency and the need of having time as a real barrier, right? So we are all busy, our days are packed, so we want to optimize all these satellite processes of, for example, like you said, right, nobody likes to be waiting online on the phone to get I don't know, your credit card reactivated because you put the pin wrong too many times, right? Everyone would just like to just like go jump into a mobile app and reactivate it, right? Because you have already that kind of like direct link with the system. At the same time, you know, there is something wrong with your bill. You want to have a dispute or a validation done directly through a chatbot or through something that takes off the kind of like the synchronous waiting, right? And so probably I took a tangent on the answer, but the answer goes back to say there is complexity that is historical complexity. And I think right now is the right time in the digital transformation wave, and especially with the events that happened, you know, in the past year, we are naturally now forced to take down those barriers, because as humans, we are seeing the world in a different way. And seeing the world in a different way, we now understood that this asynchronous model is what is actually going to scale more into consumer satisfaction and will actually fulfill what are the consumer's demands.
Just to take a, for my own sake, to try and kind of surmise and make sure, you know, see if we can, if I can take a stab at the stance here. Really, so the issue of omnichannel, it's none of it's, the challenge at its core isn't the channels themselves. It's what's getting to the channel long beforehand. It's treating those channels as individual, as opposed to, like, you know, sourcing it from a single well, if you were to kind of put it metaphorically speaking. Am I far off?
No, I think because the reality, and we go back to what we were saying like a few minutes ago, right? Now the need is to unify what who the customer is and what the customer wants, right? Like going back to your example, Chris, you know, you were on your shopping cart, right? So when you go into the store, you should be identified, right? Hey, Chris, I saw that you were trying to buy this one online, but unfortunately it's only available online. Do you want me to just like proceed with the order, and so that you don't have to do it later? We can do it directly here. Because believe it or not, the fulfillment system even if they're separate, they should be, at the end of the day, they're going to reconcile, because, you know, for finance and for you know, inventory management, so that they need to converge. So the thing is that this convergence is exactly the missing gap that you were just like highlighting. That's what I would reflect into the consumer experience.
See, and you, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was saying, but the technology, you know, the technology is there. You know, I usually say a very provocative things. Like we were able to send a rocket on the moon with only 16 kilobytes probably of memory. And nowadays we think that we need 4 gigabytes of memory to run something that fundamentally is a million times easier to run, right?
No, and you made it a really good point. It's, you know, speaking about the customer needs and expectations. However, as Mudassar often reminds me, it's very important that we always have to kind of consider the business needs as well.
Yeah, like, thanks, Chris. That's exactly what I was looking for. Like, I'm thinking on the other side, like, guys, like, you know, on one side the requirement is quite clear, right? And as a business, our business is saying we want to deliver these experiences, we want to deliver them fast, and we want to make sure we're avoiding all inconsistencies, right? But then the flip side of that is that, you know, we keep hearing that the release capabilities on different channels is going to be multiple times the effort, need a lot more resources, the investment keeps rising. All this is keeping us making from any real progress and scaling this, right? So how do you guys suggest that it is to be tackled? Because really, that's really the big challenge behind, once you all have agreed and you're getting into the next stage of it, that's really where things start getting clogged.
Yeah, so going back to if we have to solve this problem, and building on what you said is exactly true. Like if we have built our organization and our tech stack around a particular channel, Mudassar, if marketing wants to release a new feature, new capability, new value proposition, or even a deal and discount, we really have to go across 100 or like so many different code bases, which are like so many different squads are working on it. And that's why the answer that you hear or the marketing leaders hear is, well, we got to fix the chatbot, we got to fix the mobile, and then Android and iOS, and then the web, and so on and so forth. So it's multiple times the effort to release a feature. It's again Conway's law, but it doesn't have to be that way. We are now, like Luca is saying, the technology has evolved quite a bit. We have we have well-established patterns. Design systems have come a really long way. As long as we focus and we build this conscious effort that all these digital assets and properties across different channels need to be built in a consistent way, and we just have to put dedicated effort and focus into achieving it, which is to make reusable components, design systems. Luca will speak more about reusable components, I'm sure, but that's how you achieve speed and scale. There's no other way around. You cannot, because if everything is custom crafted and custom built for the channel, then you're going to have to incur all these costs to release the feature across the board or across different capability sets and channels. But if you bring them and design them in a way that it's a button, it's a feature, but what does this page comprise of? Few key elements. If we build them in a way that they're reusable across different channels, across mobile, Android, iOS, and web, we can certainly lower this problem of cost, and more importantly, speed to market, which is the most critical feature, right? But I'm also like interested to see Luca's opinion on it.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you look at once again, if you go back for a second to technology, right? The technology, from a technology standpoint, we actually naturally evolved, right, from a monolith way of thinking, that the so-called monolith, to microarchitectures, to distributed architectures, to federated architectures, right? So if you look at the technology side, the foundation kind of like principles are there, right? And so if you look, for example, APIs, right? The concept of unified identities, unified profiles, but not only there, right? As if you tap into the mobile applications, for example, you know, the unification of technology under hybrid technologies like React Native or Flutter, for example, right? So build once, reuse everywhere, and the native and the natural evolution on how we can actually converge channels, the consumer channels like mobile and web under a single umbrella, right? So we saw for example, PWAs, right? The progressive web apps taking the place of native apps. Still a long path to have the transition done, right? Because the use of native application is embedded right now in every single consumer, right? But if you look at also from the front end standpoint, right? How do we componentize the development and how do we make sure that those experiences are consistent, right? So we went from a component-based architecture where the component itself was what was the fulcrum, right, of reusability, to looking at the whole experience as the fulcrum of this acceleration, this growth, right? And so you have, for example, micro front ends that we spoke in other occasions and also publicly about being this new pivotal point, in my personal opinion, on how to think about architecture for use, an architecture for unification. Because like you said, design systems that create a language, right? A domain specific language. On top of the language, there must be the implementation of this language, the way we communicate using that language. And so if you look, for example, at design system as the basic grammar and words, we are speaking in English, right? So we are we are a clear example of implementing a specific language. But what is actually interesting is how we unify these pieces into reusable components, into reusable experiences, right? And so how we basically combine these pieces and create, once again, a unified way of communicating to our audience.
So look, I have one more thought here, which is what we often hear when we talk about unification. Many technology leaders, also experienced leaders, they argue and they have a strong point of view that if we speak about unifying code base, let's say, and components across different channels, what they worry is customer experience is really based on the channel. It's the behaviors and attitudes of the customer are different per channel too. They are used to different ways and different interactions and different patterns on a mobile versus web. So if we are talking unifying, there's a bit discomfort in terms of, well, are you making us move away from native and we are going to lose those fine-grained nitty-gritties of user experience, which really makes us excel in that channel. How do you think, how do we address that concerns? I kind of know the answer, but like from purely your perspective, how do we go about this concept of personalizing for the channel and at the same time reusing it everywhere?
Yeah.
The like button.
there are many gaps, right, in this kind of like hybrid set of technologies. And one of the major gap is trying to, we spoke about unification, but we should also kind of democratize and unify at the same time the knowledge related to those specific technologies, right? And those technologies has been evolving naturally, right? So I think nowadays, to address those fears is that the fact that, we spoke about React Native and Flutter, and everyone knows about native specific language, like you can build Kotlin or you can use Swift or Swift UI for iOS. The fact is that now we are going from a generic framework. Before, to build an iOS app, you had to write in Objective-C or Swift, to understanding why you need to use those specific native languages, right? What kind of specific domains they try to address. And personally, very provocatively, I always say native applications, they are fading into the corner of being obsolete. Building native languages. And I tell you the reason why is because nowadays our React Native and Flutter and PWAs are advancing to take advantage of speed of delivery and being nimble, that all the missing features that can be nitty-gritty details on performance, which are also overcome. For example, in React Native, there is a phenomenal library called Reanimator, where you can write animations that they perform at 60 frames per second, like a video game. But then you see that other things they need native, like, for example, certain banking applications, they need the security isolation that, for example, the native framework can deliver. But that doesn't imply that you can either or, right? You can mix and match the two things. While if you go into for example, simulation or video games, however you could do them in React Native, I always say probably native code will always outperform, just because you can access, certain hardware capabilities that or else you couldn't access. So that's probably the major thing, right? So it's also kind of try to make everyone aware that, yes, if I was to say PWA would still lack the push notifications value. And I know that Mudassar basically raises his hand and say it's never going to happen, right? And I fully agree. That's a major gap in iOS nowadays for PWAs, is the native support for push notification, right? Which keeps this gap, this hole pretty big. But once again, I think we have enough technologies to allow speed, unification, and at the same time, high performance. But if I can add something, what is super valuable of this hybrid technology is that they allow to converge the world of design systems with the world of development. And that's, I think, the nicest thing is when we basically, once again, go back to the domain specific language where experience becomes an outcome of this language.
So I just want to bring up a point, kind of circling back before, well, it's still, I think, quite applicable, but, you know, speaking about like microservices and the concept of really breaking things down to smaller levels so that they're kind of reusable going across the boards. And up until this point, everybody is very much well talked about solutions and how to get past the challenges and stuff. However, but to the point, and Midgasser can really relate to this, you know, none of this is really reflecting yet in you know, we get these huge bills, we get these, you know, 3 different channels, 3 times the work. It just seems that like it's just a lot of lip service, really. And, you know, I'm speaking candidly, but like, when can we, you know, when can we expect it? Like, when is it actually going to be this less like, you know, it's not 4 guys talking, well, really 3 and a spectator talking about it, but, you know, as opposed to just like this becoming the new reality for everybody. Anyone can answer that, really.
I mean, the when, I wish I could tell you now or yesterday, right? You'd make things interesting, right? But you touch a very, very important point, right? You said about microservices, and there is a huge effort. And you know, in the past, I spoke at a conference about the concept of data mesh, for example. And I think when we look at this particular problem, right, we need to take the last step that I was telling before, right? The evolution goes into federated architectures. And that's where really the big shift comes into place, when the mesh creates this overlay, you know, it's an overlay network at the end of the day, but let's say an overlay layer that we use to transparently communicate between all those tiers. And that's, I think, the first step to create even more acceleration towards this world where this, you know, ideal world of omnichannel. So there is also a data effort and an infrastructural effort that we need to take care of.
Yeah, just building on that question, I'm thinking, Luca and Azar, like, I think it's not for everyone either. Like the amount of effort, investment, and everything that goes in. What's your take on it? Like, from my point of view, it is a very important strategic decision. Either you're going to go for it or you're not going to go for it. And a lot of brands, a lot of businesses prefer to stick to multi-channel strategies. They recognize the challenges, they recognize what else needs to go in. So what's your take on it? My thinking is that it needs a very clear understanding of everything that requires, and take a business decision. Do you want to go in or not? Right.
Yeah, so I think I'll go back to Lucas' word. This is not either or, Mudassar. Like, they can very well keep their channel personalized and very like unique to the customers they are serving. We recognize the need. Every channel has different dynamics. We're not saying every channel must be the same and the experience the same across the board. What we are talking about here is you don't have to basically reinvent the wheel on every channel and do this in different teams and technology stacks to accomplish that. You can take really smart decisions to optimize your tech stacks and your experience foundations in a way that they can be consumed in that channel. You can still choose to have a different strategy on channels. One channel is costlier for you to serve. You don't want to build all the capabilities in there because it's more expensive, right? Fundamentally. And you want to shift the behavior of users to move them to a channel which is easier for you to serve them on. So this is all fair. We are not saying make all the features in all channels. What we are saying is organizations need to take a stock sweep, make a conscious decision to invest in their technology platforms and experience foundations so that they don't have to do this again and again, and they're not ballooning in terms of their investment in technology and not achieving reusability. I think that's the decision. And as of ROI, I think it's pretty clear. It's been established. These are not new things. They have gone through the rounds of testing, implementation. There are a lot of literature out there. What is the benefit of design system now, especially in micro front ends Luca was talking about? It really pays off very fast. And I think back to Chris's point, why is it not happening? Is because I feel like technology and certain other functions are treated more like as a consumer. Decisions are made, and then they're just told that, hey, we need to achieve this. These are the requirements, build this system. Whereas if we change the culture of organization, where your experience, product, technology leaders are working collaboratively with business to understand what needs to be achieved and think from first principles perspective, then they can think about, okay, these are the core capabilities which are common across the channel. How can we build them in a unified way that we are really saving money by building them once and deploying everywhere, as Luca was talking about? Yeah. So I do agree with you. It's not a one solution that fits everybody, but on the same time, I feel like it's being very clearly established in the market, the ROI of design systems, micro front ends, and reusability in digital platforms.
I love your point on bringing all the stakeholders together, really to strategize and figure that roadmap, right? Yeah, Luca, you wanted to add something there?
I mean, I think Uzair gave a perfect overview, and what I just want to add is that once again, I think that the first principles, right, that you mentioned are the core of digital transformation, right? And you know, simplicity at the core definitely will allow for having this hybrid environment. And once again, it's not one size fits all, right? I feel that micro front ends, for example, they are a great solution in environments where you want to unify those silos, right? And there is value in doing that. But in many other, you know, situations, there will be too much of a stretch. It's like forcing. Sometimes I see my my little one also trying to. Is learning how to put all the shapes right together, and he was struggling and is still struggling to put the star into the square. And you know that's a clear example, right? It's not gonna fit, but sometimes you know I try to explain it to him that it's not gonna fit, but still tries. And that's a little bit, right? We need to create a way, and I think it's our responsibility also as leaders in this industry, right, and as drivers, is to pave the way and to define what is the reference architecture, but also the reference decision-making points for making a conscious decision, right? We see many times people, you know, say, oh, I go hybrid and I'm going with Flutter, for example, right? And I say, why not React Native, right? Because we need to start creating that kind of like decision-making tree that allows people to feel more comfortable, like Uzair was saying, because they are already standards, right? They're already there. It's just having the correct decision-making tree to decide, oh, what to use, how to combine. Sometimes it just doesn't fit like the star into the square.
Yeah,
I will let you guys know if we can put the star in the square, but I doubt we will be able.
So I'll just add to Lucas and building on that is basically it's about consciously knowing the trade-offs, right? Speed and flexibility and personalization. These are all trade-offs. What is more important to the organization? In many cases, going to market faster and speed is very highly and much more appreciated and of value to business than the smaller nitty-gritty use cases that we all tend to argue about and go into making decisions which may not be optimal.
No, that's so. Again, we're going to pause for a minute so I can kind of play a little catch up and see if I can understand here. So somewhere back there is at least a couple of books on Darwin, and hearing you guys talk about like, you know, we can, we could, we should, you know, it's possible. Yeah, and like you're saying, like the technology is there, we've gone to the moon, and you know, but we're not. A lot, you know, my experience is a perfect example of that. So, you know, we've talked a lot. To be quite frank, we've talked about challenges and a lot. We've been harshing my mellow on a Friday. I like to be a little bit more positive when I round out my week. So we've talked about what you could do. Let's do it. let's switch gears and, let's assume that we have a utopian organization. We don't have any of these internal obstacles. How would you architect these experiences from the ground up? How would we encourage organizations to kind of start thinking differently, to break down these silos, and to put the kind of investments that they really would need to, not just to return the thinking from terms of an ROI point of view, but really just on a cultural, organizational level that would transcend itself, back to that me being a very happy customer, aside from looking for a new place to buy pants.
So you identify a couple of things that are very, I mean, to me, they're very, very interesting, right? And it's all about retaining customers, right? Because clearly churn is demonstrating the fact that you're looking for a new place for pants. But how to architect, I think, in my personal point of view, I think we need to kind of like put our mindset in the sense that we will, right? This thing is going to happen. And how it's going to happen, I think, is going back to what Uzair was saying. We need to take a step back and look at first principles, because sometimes we just try to convolute even more systems and architectures that they're already overly convoluted and complicated. So in order to go there, for example, what we did, we look at micro front ends with our own pair of eyes, right? And all the problems that we saw in different organizations. And, there are a million ways of doing micro front ends, but we took our own step, right? With a library that we open source, Bolster. And we said, how can we reconnect all these dots in a very simple way? What is the real problem that we're trying to solve that everyone struggles with, and start from there. So it's all about strangling problems and solving them. I usually actually use this expression that is familiar only to people that are Italian like me. It's like making mozzarella. It's the same exact concept, right? Not the one that you buy in a plastic bag, the real one, the one that we make in Italy. And what you do, you take this piece of cheese that, creates thanks to this magic of chemistry, and you strangle it. And when you strangle it, the mozzarella is made. So it's the same thing, right? We strangle this long thing into this old, beautiful, nicely handmade bocconcini, right? The mozzarella. And in terms of in the real terms of enterprise and architecture, what we do is that we need to start simplifying the path for this transformation. And it comes from, for example, strangling bottlenecks into new opportunities, like micro front ends that are a clear example. And on the other side, when you look at omnichannel, there are many things that needs to be looked at, right? But that doesn't mean to do them all at the same time. Like we mentioned data, there is a huge opportunity in unifying the single point of view for the customer, right? And I don't mean the single point of record. I mean the single point of truth, sorry. I mean, how can we actually create this omni view of our customers, right? So that I can actually, keep track and, always rehydrate customer transactions from where they were left off to the new point of transaction. Example that we did before. You'll have something in your cart, you should go in a store, and they should be able to continue your transaction from there, right? Because that's crucial, right? And so we saw from an API standpoint, the concept of unified identities, for example, right? Which is a very, very kind of complicated problem to solve. But definitely this problem can be, unified, strangling, for example, without going into too much details that might bore some of the people. But, there are methodology and architectures for which you can, simplify unification of identities using policies, for example. So we have all the tools. We have all the perfect ingredients, right? And just to quote something that probably, Chris, you heard 1.5 million times from me. It's going back into the kitchen, right? And the best food is made with few great ingredients, blend them together perfectly. And probably for the people that already heard me talking, the example is cacio e pepe, 3 ingredients, extremely complicated to put together, but blended together, they make a dish that is extremely simple and yet effective. So it's all that thing, right? And if you look at this omni blending and so on, is the same thing. It's like making, you know, mayo or making the ketchup paper, right? It's all blending this thing at perfection that requires tempo, so the rhythm, knowledge, and coordination, right? So we look at the system becoming more distributed, more, you know, almost federated, and now coordination becomes the core to create a perfect blending.
Like I love, and the passion came across like completely clear using the word strangle. I personally would have used the word massage, maybe. I think you might get some more invites into the kitchen to join you in the kitchen if you kind of switch that. Just kidding.
I wish you could massage mozzarella, but then it doesn't really come as a mozzarella at the end.
That's the stuff that ends up in the bag.
Exactly. No, I don't know who's there also, or Mudassar. What do you guys think?
Yeah, if I can, sorry, I'll just go in first. Like, I wanna call out a few things, and then I wanna build on what Luca said. So, first thing is, it's really important for us to recognize that it's not a tech-only driven initiative. It really is an enterprise-wide initiative. That means your capability set, the mindset of the organization, people part, the processes, how you set up, how your technology and platforms are coming together. So it's very holistic. And once you're done with the initial stage of where you want to set clear expectations on what does the business want to achieve and why do you need it, how will you measure it, really, I think what I wanted to go back to building block from Luca was it's your focus really needs to go back to data. So how can you centralize it? And then don't try and be everything for every customer on every channel. It is really a recipe of failure. Instead, you know, when you have the data centralization, advanced analytics and different techniques will help you identify which customer intentions or behaviors across which channels are really the main ones that you want to focus on, and that would be a good starting point. So I'm good. So over to Luke, Zara, please.
Yeah, I think as a roundup, I agree with Mudassar. It's not just a technology problem. We have to architect our organizations in a way that we are serving the customers across the channel. We have to understand the customer journeys from end-to-end perspective. We have to use the customer experience principles here, going across the silos, breaking them, understanding not only the digital touch points, but also how the backend systems are working basically to serve those customers. And then to Luca's point, we take a hard look at where we are. What do we want to accomplish in terms of our digital platforms and capabilities? How can we aggregate that data to get a customer 360 view? Because knowing the customer better, like the example we were sharing is if the system knows that Chris was looking at this deal in shopping cart and now is in the store, why does it matter that I have to route it to the other channel? The other channel is not the other company. It's really orchestrating the experience for them. He wants it in a different channel. Let's serve him, right? And yes, you can have different discounts in different channels, absolutely, but doesn't mean that we should really drop the ball on the customer moving from one channel to another. So I think that's the way forward. Many companies are recognizing it, making those investments. Others are choosing to just dig heels and refactor their way there, but I don't think they're going to get there. You have to rethink, replatform, and prepare yourself for a future, because guess what? The interfaces and channels of future are adding. They're not simplifying or dying. The social media is not going anywhere. Digital web is not going anywhere. At best, we're adding more channels in future, which are going to be varied, immersive, multi-dimensional. Its complexity is just going to go many-fold.
And VHS is coming back. You heard it here first. No, but what you said is like, it actually, I've got a question to follow up with that. And I apologize. I never promised that my food metaphors are going to be anywhere nearly as good as Luca's are. But do you guys collectively imagine that we're really gonna hit a tipping point? You know, just much like the point when I go to the store and buy chicken, it doesn't have feathers on it. But that's how I used to go and buy chicken, but it evolved to the point where you kind of have that expectation of all of this certain experience, this certain amount being done for you. I evidently already am at that point when it comes to omnichannel, as that frustration has told you. But when is that going to, like, is that going to eventually be the norm? And is that like going to be a factor for back to evolution for some organizations simply just not being able to kind of continue on, make the cut? I'll open it up to all of you on that one.
I mean, you're talking about, you know, commoditization process, right? Like you're basically commoditizing things. And I personally feel that as the cloud commoditize certain processes and access to infrastructure, access to certain non-functional requirements that are coming out of the box. So we will commoditize more and more aspects of this journey, right? So like the first step that from a technology standpoint we saw happening is this kind of like boom of micro front ends initiatives, right? Most recently, Netflix actually openly said, our experience are micro front ends. This is how we're building them. And so on, everyone is starting to create their own point of view and add their point of view, right? So, and this will allow for this commoditization and unification of a solution, right? I'm not saying that there will be one solution in the world, because that would be saying that there's only one database that you can use. And, you know, from me, you will never hear these words, but I'm saying that there is a huge opportunity, right? And I think what we will see in the next couple of years is the commoditization of this layer, because it's becoming a necessity for everyone to go there. Cloud was a necessity to digitally transform. Everyone complained it takes too long to have that machine. And that's why AWS first, and then following all the other big players, they saw a huge opportunity. So the experience layer will see this huge commoditization as we go.
From a linguistic point of view, it bothers me that there will be one solution to omnichannel. But
There would be a million.
We can take that up offline.
Yeah, but you see, there's not one cloud, right? So the most important thing is to commoditize the mindset and the process, but not to commoditize solutions or ideas, because that will stop the evolution. But we need to commoditize and the common ground of what omnichannel is, right? And we are coming with our own point of view, right? We are formulating our own reference architecture. But my hope as a technologist, as a leader, is that this collective is going to be extended to a broader group, even to almost a consortium or you know, an alliance between multiple players to kind of like unify something that at the end of the day is becoming like repetitive and not evolutionary. I believe that if we find a common ground, and we will start evolving and not reinventing the wheel.
So that's brilliant. We have about 4 minutes left. And speaking of point of view, I want to kind of end off with getting kind of collecting each one of yours. So first, when you think of omnichannel, even multi-channel for that matter, we've got mobile. I used to not be able to make a purchase on my phone or do anything like that. I could, let alone order it on my computer at home. So as technology continues to grow and kind of empower these type of experiences, not only what is the new, you know, then we've got IoT that kind of came into the mix. What's next? What more is going to be kind of added into that marketing mix, that product brand experience mix that I can account for? Like, if I start sweating, am I suddenly going to get like a Coke delivered to the door? If the ambient temperature in the room slightly goes acute, or is that or perhaps even to disaster? Like, do you think there's going to be a point where it's like, okay, this is too much? Like, I don't want you to know that I feel that way. So, you know, we'll start with you actually.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you know what? It's a marketing thing, right? We just love, you know, new things, shiny new objects. We run behind it. Every new tool in the market, any new channel, nothing. We gotta go experiment with it. So, you know, AR, VR, metaverse, immersive, these are really the other things. But if you look at human behavior, it's all about convenience. And we, as much lazy as my life can be, I'd probably love it.
So
Right?
lazy.
So it's all about, how can I get more convenience? How can I do less and get more? So those are always going to be the driving factors, right? So marketers would always chase, go after the consumer expectations and influencing their behaviors. So that's really going to be the driving thing. And then every time new things are going to come up, we're really going to rush for it. So these guys don't have anything easy for them. We're going to keep throwing mozzarella and Luca, and we're going to say, what the hell? Here's another channel. Here's another demand. Here's another thing we want to do.
Wanting more for doing less. It's so unique.
You see, their life is no easy. So, I'd love to hear how they can prepare themselves for it.
How about you, Uzair?
Yeah, I think we talked about this at length in our other webinar, right? About the future of experience design and how the interfaces and those things are evolving, especially with 5G, with Wi-Fi 5 and 6 then coming up. So
you'll find a link to that in the comments below. Don't worry.
Yeah, so one thing which is pretty obvious is a lot of the big tech players have taken heavy bets on immersive experiences. If you read their quarterly business reviews, their articles, their investments, very, very clear. They are not seeing mobile as the center of the universe, which has been for the past decade. All of our life has been around mobile, in mobile, like we are glued to it all the time. But in future, like you were saying, Chris, we are invariably heading towards that, which is the computing is in the ambient. It's around you. It's distributed, like Lucas said, it's very, very much distributed. It's the sensors which are sensing your temperature, your movements, your gestures, your interfaces are going to be in front of your eyes. I know Google's experiment of Google Glass failed, probably an invention not at the right time, and we were probably not ready, but we are heading towards it. Guess what? Last month, Ray-Ban, Facebook, they launched their experiences, right? So
do you know, I'm sorry to cut in, but being a marketer, I've already bought those glasses and now I'm fiddling around with them. So shiny new objects, man.
Yeah. So I going back, I truly agree with Mudassir. A lot of it, yes, these are marketing gimmicks. Some of them will fail and die, which is always the case with technology. Others will stick around, and those that will stick around are the ones which make us incredibly lazy and make things simplify for them. Why should I take my phone off when I can just see that Google map in front of my eyes on a screenless interface, which is like a hologram or is like a different version of Oculus Rift. The form factors, I can tell you right now, it's only our imagination is stopping us. These form factors, these interfaces are on crutches. Like the Oculus Rift is literally on a crutch right now because it has to be bounded to your eyes. But it's a matter of few years, and we will see very different experiences in front of our eyes. The world will be very different.
See, I think you guys are thinking too broad. I'd be happy with like a chair 2.0, like just some like just one up on like the little things. Lastly, Luca, what are your thoughts on that? What's to come?
I started saying that I'm provocative, so I'm definitely, on the idea that these new shiny things are, for at least me, the way we can create new opportunities for, our clients, our customers, but even for the industry itself. So in terms of like new shiny things, definitely there are many opportunities. I haven't bought the Ray-Ban yet, just because I don't find the use there. But I believe that there are so many opportunities into what the technology is delivering right now, especially reinventing not reinventing, but combining first principles and simple things that we can commoditize certain use cases. That's where I see there is the biggest opportunity.
Perfect.
But I will always push for crazy innovative things that they are easy and simple to implement, because I said it's an evolutionary thing. Technology can't stop, and it will never stop.
The best solutions are the simplest ones. And
it's like food, right?
It's always like food. I'm so hungry. We've gone over the amount of time, and like we could keep talking here. I've been trying to order a pizza out of the corner here, and you guys haven't been paying attention, you know.
It was the mozzarella, right? That drove you
You got me started. It's Friday. It's like historically pizza day at offices around the world.
Yeah, one thing that I want to, I know that we are over time, but I would
That's
just
okay.
need to say this thing, right? Back to the kitchen, right? And I think it's my grand finale, if you want to call it in this way.
How about we call it dessert?
Massimo Bottura, who is the clear expression of this new wave of innovation in the kitchen, right? 3 Michelin stars and #1 restaurant in the world for many, many years. I think what's very interesting of his story and what he tried to do is exactly the name of his menu, Tradition in Evolution. And why I really like your question about, new shiny things and so on. They're not per se the new shiny things that they make sense and they win. Are the old things reimagined and readapted to a new dimension, a new space, a new direction, a new perception. And that's what I think is very powerful, right? So if you go back to the kitchen, there are a million of ways to cook something, right? If I tell you like lasagna, there are tons of ways to make it. There is a regional one that is great, but maybe that's not what you like or what you really kind of like fills your appetite.
Put egg in yours? I put egg in mine.
But it's all about, I think there is so much to learn from that, right? And technology is exactly the same. That's why I believe that technology and food are so connected. It's just because they live on the same evolution phase, right? We are so connected to traditions, to things that they make us feel comfortable. But at the same time, there is this inherited need of evolving and changing and adapting and reinventing, right? But at the end of the day,
I agree.
Always the same thing.
It's all about comfort. This whole thing started about me needing pants. There's a reason I haven't stood up during this entire webinar. But I swear I have pants on. Thank you. I just, we have gone a bit over. I want to thank all three of you for joining us here today. This was a fantastic talk. I want to do another one. I think we could very easily cover quite a few different topics on this. Thank you everyone for joining us. Luca and I actually have a talk coming up, I believe, on GraphQL. So keep a lookout on your socials as well. We'll be circulating this with everybody. And yeah, have a great weekend and take care. Be safe, everybody.
Take care. Ciao, everyone.
Bye, thank you.